Tennessee. Adam, what's the latest there?
Well, Laura, Brian Daboll did not get the Buffalo Bills head coaching job. He's still up for the Raiders head coaching job, though they haven't hired him. And that would tell you that it doesn't seem like it's going in his direction. And if he doesn't get the Raiders head coaching job, he is set to become the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, where he would get to work with Cam Ward, the quarterback that the Giants tried desperately to trade up to draft before the draft last year. Couldn't get it done. Brian Daboll didn't get a chance to trade for him last year, but now would be joining forces with the new Titans head coach Robert Saleh in Tennessee. And that would mean that it would be New York, New York, with two former New York head coaches, Saleh and Daboll, in Tennessee to try to turn around the Titans and elevate Cam Ward's performance.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like this hire a lot. Daboll's shown the ability, right, to work with some young up-and-coming quarterbacks in his last few stops. He was the Bills offensive coordinator for Josh Allen's first 4 seasons in the league. We saw success there. In his first season with the Giants, he inherited Daniel Jones, made the playoffs. And then, of course, there was Jackson Dart, so you know about that and what he was able to do with him. But he threw 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. Earlier in his career, he was a quarterback coach for Brett Favre during his Jets season. I'm not sure many people even remember that. But, Dan, do you like this fit?
Oh, I really like the fit. Kind of to the points that Schefter and you made. One, I like the fact that Saleh has somebody else who's been a head coach, you know, so like there's the ability to be the head coach of the defense in many ways and then head coach of offense. Two, Brian Daboll's track record for the young quarterbacks, Laura, you pointed out, speaks for itself. The big thing for Brian Daboll is continuing to push Cam Ward to slightly calm some of the loose mechanics down and not take away his special talents. If he can find that sweet spot where you're not trying to coach the magic out of him, special out of him, and you could just really get him to be more consistent, then you've got a really, really, really high-end player. If he could do that, I like it.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those sentiments. I think the thing that I like about this, and that would give me some encouragement if I'm a Titans fan, is not only has he coached a number of different young quarterbacks, he's completely altered his offense to fit the skills of each of them, right? Going back to Buffalo, we talk a lot about Josh Allen's development, but y'all remember that offense, that was all gas. The 10 personnel, throwing a lot, getting him to become a more disciplined quarterback in that process as well. And then, of course, the QB run element. Then in New York, Daniel Jones' best season, although to this, he also had a great season, obviously, in Indianapolis, but to that point, wildly different. The boots, the design quarterback runs, lots of zone reads. That offense did not throw down the field at a high rate. He wanted Daniel Jones to protect the football and to compensate for the offensive line. And then to Jackson Dart, some differences as well. There's through lines. You'll see a lot of RPOs, I think, and I imagine that'll continue with Cam Ward. Some college principles as well. But I think just for me, that flexibility from quarterback to quarterback is what is most appealing, because you don't want a coach to come in with this young quarterback and say, this is my offense, you're going to have to play this way. He's going to have to tailor it to the skills of Cam Ward.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Tennessee play next year. I think this was a major move for this organization. And think about it. The coach that they let go is about to play in the Super Bowl that we're about to go cover in San Francisco. So when you look at Robert Saleh, y'all know I'm a huge fan of him and what he did, not only with the Jets, but in San Francisco with that defense and what he was able, how those guys competed. Sometimes you look at the response of players more so than the X's and O's. And I think these are two guys that gets the response out of players to elevate them not only as football players with development, but also give them a reason every week to go out and compete at the highest level. I think, honestly, that's the most successful trait of a really good head coach, is that these guys will run through a brick wall for you, or a coach leading a unit. Brian Daboll, I've known him since he was at Alabama. Boogie, you've known him. We know he's fiery, but guys love playing for him. And Robert Saleh, to me, seems like the antithesis of a guy that football players love to be around and want to max out as players around him. They have two cornerstones as well. Dan, I heard you talk all season about Cam Ward and how talented you think he is. So Brian Daboll developing Cam Ward, based on what you've talked about and what we've seen, he can become one of those guys that you believe can be a franchise leader. Okay. And the cornerstone on defense that Robert Saleh is working with is Jeffrey Simmons, a guy that is phenomenal, a great leader. He plays one of what y'all know the most important position for me on defense right now. So it's not like you're walking into a situation where you're going to look around the locker room and not identify that we already have a lot of the makeup to be a successful football team. So I love this. 2 former head coaches, 2 guys that I think get guys to play for them beyond the X's and O's. And I think that part is going to pay major dividends for the Tennessee Titans, especially coming off this redo that they had that didn't look so successful in the beginning.
Yeah, Cam Ward's not going to shy away from intensity either. He wants to be great. We saw that a few times even this year at the podium after he felt like the team fell short. Guys, it's been an action-packed day of news. We've still got a lot more to get. NFL Live with breaking news out of Buffalo. Adam Schefter, what more can you tell us?
Laura, the Buffalo Bills officially have named their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, their new head coach. This establishes some continuity. We know that Josh Allen was a part of the interview process. Clearly, he is comfortable moving forward with Joe Brady as his head coach. This is a change in Buffalo, so it is something different, but it's also something similar because he knows the personnel, he knows the organization, and Joe Brady has turned down chances in other years to interview for other head coaching jobs. This was an ideal scenario. He flew back from Las Vegas after interviewing for a second time for the Raiders head coaching job, knowing that Buffalo was targeting him. And the Bills never got to a round of second interviews with their candidates. They brought in a slew of candidates over the weekend to Florida, met with them all, and after meeting with everybody in the first round, decided that they had seen enough, that Joe Brady was their head coach in waiting, and they've officially worked out a 5-year deal to bring him on as their head coach.
All right, tons of news to get to today. Adam is with us all show long. Excellent pullover, by the way, a little Masters pullover by Adam. I love it. We'll get to Brian Daboll and that hiring by the Titans. Mike McCarthy being introduced by the Steelers. That's coming right just a little bit. Dan, Mina, Marcus here. Marcus, what do you think of Buffalo hiring Joe Brady as their new head coach?
I think it makes sense. Boogie, we asked this question a couple of days ago, I think, on our show. What about Joe Brady with these head coaching candidacies and trying to figure out what was the holdup? A young, bright offensive mind working with a quarterback that was league MVP last year. It makes sense coming out of Buffalo. It's going to be about who he hires, how he delegates positions around this organization. But it's one critical point that I want everybody to remember, and we talked about this when Sean McDermott was let go. This is about a Super Bowl. So I'm not sure if anybody walks into a head coaching job with much more pressure than Joe Brady does. With Josh Allen, with what this city has gone through, this organization and franchise, and might I add, they build in a new stadium, and implications come with that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they go forward with his hires and the things that he does in order to kind of change what Buffalo had become under Sean McDermott, with keeping some of the successful things that were about this organization as well. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a guy in the building and knows the direction where this organization wants to go. So it makes sense. Now it's about Joe Brady and if he can be a really good head coach while also continuing to keep Josh Allen on this trend of being the player that he is.
He was the one guy in the building they could not lose. The track record of offensive success under him in Buffalo speaks for itself. The development and growth of Josh, the offensive line, and James Cook speaks for itself. Having been around Joe Brady a little bit, just calling Monday Night Football games, number one, obsesses about details. Obsesses, maniacal about it. Number two, obsesses about urgency. And then the third thing, and this was really one of the telling things this past season for Monday Night, was the character of the football team, the fabric of the football team is something that he truly believes in. He would get upset when the team would score a touchdown and the player would celebrate by himself. It was almost a rule that you had to give the ball to a lineman because you didn't score that touchdown without them. And so This is a small margin of error in Buffalo to get better than Sean McDermott. I can say this. This dude can flat out coach, and he's got a lot of obsessive traits that good coaches have. Reports of Jim Leonard as his defensive coordinator, that would be a massive get. And now the question becomes, who's going to be the offensive line coach? Because Aaron Kromer, who's one of the best in the league over the past years, has retired.
Mina?
Oh, I was told Schefter wanted to jump in. Sorry.
All right.
Would he like to
you know
jump
what?
in here?
We're not hearing from Schefter, so go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Okay, well, Dan brought up the name Jim Leonard, who is the Broncos pass game coordinator on defense, and he is going to be a leading candidate.
Okay.
There's a process that they still have to go through before they would get to hire him, but that would be a logical defensive coordinator in time, a huge addition to the Buffalo staff. We'll see if it happens, but they obviously have a number of interviews to get through before they could hire him, but that is somebody that I would pay close attention to in this process.
Yeah, I would love that. To go back to Dan's initial point about them not wanting to lose Joe Brady, I can't help but think the Bills and maybe some other teams in the future looked at what happened in Tampa and saw Liam Cohen walk out that door and wonder if they might have similar regrets that I do feel a lot of people in Tampa have now, watching the success Cohen had too, leaving for Jacksonville. And I think in and of itself, like just focusing on Brady, that does make sense. This offense was good this year. It was 4th in DVOA, 3rd in EPA per play, despite some pretty significant limitations at receiver. I think that's where I get a little bit, I wouldn't say critical of the Brady hire, but more so the total process, because the things, when I point to the offense and I say they were held back, well, they promoted the GM. So in totality, the moves to me do feel a bit like scapegoating Sean McDermott, which, you know, he's the kind of the odd man out here. But I do understand the desire to have offensive continuity given how good this offense is. And then to go back to the defensive coordinator, I would love that just because, you know, since you're sticking with your offensive play caller and your GM, you want to have some fresh voices in the building. And that, to me, would be the opportunity there on defense. Leonard has been the defensive pass game coordinator, in Denver, where the pass defense has been both successful and extremely creative. That creativity goes back to college, Wisconsin as well. So if they were to pull that off, I think then you start to feel good about, okay, we're, you know, sustaining the momentum on offense, but also trying some new things on defense. Personnel, to me, remains the biggest issue, though, with this football team.
Yeah, well, the reality is I'm not worried about defense because this hire was made for Josh Allen. And when you move forward as a football team, when it's Joe Brady and Josh Allen, this is going to be all about them and the success of this football team. If they don't have that success, we're not going to talk about the defense. We will on this show because we'll break film down. But the overall narrative will be about Joe Brady and Josh Allen, and this was supposed to be a level up from Sean McDermott. MK, you and Dan and RC and I were sitting on here like, I don't know if I like this move getting rid of Sean McDermott, which is why I alluded to the pressure that Joe Brady is under taking over as the head coach. Look, I just don't want people to be mistaken that this is going to be about some revival with Jim Leonard and the defense. We will not talk about that if this team does not have success. We will talk about this marriage between Joe Brady and Josh Allen and this team going further in the playoffs, because that's what the hire is about. We all acknowledge that when this happened with Sean McDermott. Will the margins change, and will this team be in an AFC championship and a Super Bowl in the next 2 years? I'm giving them 2 because year 1, some things may happen. But that is what this is about. That's why I think Joe Brady, out of all of the new head coaches that are being announced, is under the most pressure to win the big one or play in the Super Bowl, and it's going to be directly correlated with him and Josh Allen.
Him and Mentor.
This was a pressure-filled job no matter who was going to get it. I agree with that. The Bills, by the way, you guys are mentioning how good the offense has been with Joe Brady. They're 31-10, averaging 29.1 points per game since promoting Brady to offensive coordinator in Week 11 of 2023. So it's not all about that, though, as Marcus said, because they've got to win championships.